Our friend Mike Rooney, college baseball analyst at ESPN, also works at D1 Baseball, writes some stuff, bunch of podcasts, a lot of college baseball. I have said before, and I will say again, there are few people on planet Earth that I know that love the game of college baseball more than my friend Mike Rooney. Roons, happy baseball season.
Thanks, RC. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. We're in this spot where we're now hours, not days away, and in the state of Mississippi, that's a really, really big deal. We've been talking about college baseball for 2 months leading up kind of to the start of this season, and feels like there's a lot of reason to be excited with Mississippi State as the reigning national champs and a lot coming back, and Ole Miss with a ton coming back offensively, and Southern Miss looks like they're going to be good again this year as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like inconceivable and that you might have a year where there's 3 Mississippi schools hosting regionals. I mean, obviously almost mathematically impossible for all 3 to host super regionals, but man, I'm with you. I mean, Southern Miss is going to be really good. Again, they're really experienced in their position player group, and obviously they've got some really important arms to replace, but you nailed it. I mean, Mississippi State's the defending champs and really talented, and Ole Miss, you could make an argument, it's the best offense coming back in the country, and so yeah, really good baseball in the state of Mississippi once again.
Mike, I want you to talk to me a little bit about Landon Sims. He's the lockdown guy at the back end last year. Mississippi State doesn't win a national championship without Landon Sims. He makes the transition, and the crew at D1 Baseball, I guess you included probably in those conversations, ranked him as the number 1 starting pitcher in the country this year. You guys are pretty confident that he's going to make that transition from back end to front end pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Landon Sims is super talented, clearly, understatement of the year. But I think the other part of it is, even though he was Mississippi State's closer last year, it's not closer as defined by the major leagues, right? If you look at it, he had 26 appearances, I believe, and something like 57 innings. So, the 3 outs and go home was almost non-existent for him. Basically, Mississippi State's giving him the ball at the end of the game and saying, go finish this, fella. And, his numbers are just such a joke, right? I mean, last year, 100 strikeouts in the 56.1 innings or whatever it was. I mean, that's crazy. That's almost 2 an inning, and it was against 15 walks. Hitters hit 149. It's a blazing fastball. It's a big-time breaking ball. He's athletic and repeats his delivery and really collected on the mound. So, there's just the only thing that would lead you to believe that he won't be able to make the transition is that many have failed in the past doing it. But, none of those guys had Landon Sims' numbers as a reliever either. So, he's a strike thrower. He's super talented. He's got multiple out pitches. I think him throwing 100 innings for Mississippi State is nothing but a really good thing.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, teams that have an ace on Friday night are teams that have a chance to be really, really good. And I know everybody has a guy that throws on Friday night, but not everybody has a true ace, and we'll see if Landon Sims turns into that. But before we get to Ole Miss, can we back up just a little bit or widen our view? I'm going to give you credit for being more of a national college baseball guy as opposed to us just being focused on the SEC and the state of Mississippi. Give me a story or two nationally that really interests you, Mike, going into this season.
Yeah, I think it's weird. I'm going to give you something that's related to last year that interests me this year. And it's basically that last year was so full of surprises. And it was really fun. I mean, think about this. Kevin Kopps of Arkansas, who won our Heisman Trophy in college baseball. He won the Golden Spikes. This is a kid that was in his 5th year. He had an 8 ERA in 2020 and was basically calling the coaches at Arkansas saying, hey, do you guys want me to come back or should I just kind of get a job? And next thing you know, he wins the Golden Spikes Award. The MAC, the Metro Atlantic Conference up in New York, had 2 bids, right? Fairfield started their season 33-1. They didn't lose a game until May. There's that part of it. So I think that's kind of the fun. Hey, if I was going to tie it into Mississippi, who knew a team that in their second to last weekend could lose a home series to Missouri, who was having a really rough season, then get run off the field twice in Hoover, would go on to win the national title. So, Notre Dame, speaking of Mississippi State, Notre Dame was picked 12th, 13th, 14th in the ACC. They won the league by 4.5 games. So I think that's one of the things I'm really curious about this year is, is it going to be chalk? Is it going to be a bunch of surprises again this year? And, I think nationally there's just a lot of really good hitters, and the pitchers we don't know as much about. So that part will be fun too.
And I think that's part of what makes this year fascinating, because I've talked with this topic about some other people. Last year, man, it was arms everywhere, and it was names that we knew and names that were proven. And this year we may have arms everywhere, but it's going to be April or May before we know whether or not we do. But we know we've got guys that can swing it, and we know their names.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, RC, like, I asked Chris Burke, our buddy at ESPN, and I asked him this question in a recent interview. Like, my brain tells me that there are really talented arms, especially in the SEC, who just aren't. They haven't done it yet, right? They haven't proven themselves. But here's the other thing that I think about: what if those unproven arms just get absolutely bulldozed by the offenses in the SEC West? Because that's a real possibility. I mean, can you imagine being a pitching coach in the SEC West right now, trying to game plan for LSU and Ole Miss and Mississippi State and Arkansas? I mean, good luck with that, right? Like, I mean, there are future big leaguers up and down those lineups. Yeah. Guys that are talented and have done it. And, I mean, gosh, think about Ole Miss. Ole Miss did all that with a one-legged Tim Elko. They get a two-legged Tim Elko this year.
I asked you about a specific player at Mississippi State. I want to do the same thing at Ole Miss, but it's not a pitcher. It's Jacob Gonzalez, freshman All-American a year ago. He's a preseason second-team All-American. A little bit taller, a little bit bigger shortstop, pretty good pop in the bat, finishes at double-digit home runs. What do you expect sophomore Jacob Gonzalez to look like for Mike Bianco in Ole Miss?
Well, he's a star player. I'll tell you, RC, here's the thing. Like, I live on the West Coast, right? And people on the West Coast are pretty spooked by the dominance of the SEC in baseball. I mean, for Californians and Arizonans, baseball used to be their sport. And now the SEC has just kind of run away with it. And, think about it. Last year in the SEC, we had 3 true freshmen shortstops playing every day. And really, you could call it 4 if you want to throw Lane Forsythe in there. He just didn't, he didn't start from day one like some of these other guys. And so Jacob Gonzalez is one of them. And these other 3 guys, I'm talking about Thompson at LSU, I'm talking about Jarvis at Alabama, and I'm talking about Jacob Gonzalez. These are California kids that have chosen the SEC. And you think about how good you have to be to hold yourself above water in the SEC as a true freshman. And Jacob Gonzalez didn't just hold himself up. He dominated. And, I think here's the thing. If Jacob Gonzalez was a runner, he's not a college baseball player. He's like a first 5 pick out of high school guy. But he's not a great runner, but he does everything else great. Sure-handed, true thrower. He's got that California plays at a perfect pace. Like, the game never speeds him up. His at-bats are very professional. Hey, and he's a good-sized kid, and the power's just going to keep coming. So, yeah, I think because he's a coach's kid, by the way, I think the pace at which he plays, the instincts he has, and he's got size and talent, I think he's just going to keep – it's going to be an upward trajectory for that.